On day 24, we'll leave Kendall, Florida and drive 150 miles to Key West. We head out real early in the morning so we can get a jump on getting down to Key West and seeing things. And again, palm trees line all the roads. We passed through Homestead, Florida that was destroyed by a hurricane several years ago. Seems to be rebuilt a lot. And soon we're heading down Highway 1. You'll notice the high fences on each side to keep animals off the road, and a partition down the middle to keep cars from hitting each other. Soon we're driving on to Key Largo, the northernmost of the Keys. Be careful about speeding. It is Memorial Day weekend and they're watching. Soon we're on Almirada Key, another one of those developed areas with a large town. Is that what it said? Here we're going to have to stop and see Big Betsy, a huge lobster that they have here. We'll be passing over many bridges as we go down through the Keys. After all, it is called the Overseas Highway. Many of the areas on the Keys are built up and they're just modern towns with houses and stores, and then in other places it's left to a natural state. Next we pass through the town of Marathon. And then we cross the 6 Mile Bridge. The water is a beautiful color of blue. The next big key is Big Pine Key. And here they have a native population of key deer, which are tiny white-tailed deer about knee-high. And we have to watch out for them. They're very endangered. On the Sugarloaf Key, and then soon we'll be at Key West. Key West is a rather large key, but most of what we want to look at is going to be in the end of the old city. We'll be staying in the Best Western Hotel, looking at the Key West Butterfly Conservatory, driving up Duval Street, eating at the Conch Shack, taking the Conch Train, looking around Key West Aquarium, eating at Seaside Cafe at the mansion before going back to our hotel. Let's get started. As we drive through Key West, you'll know some places are fairly modern houses, and even CVS drugstores and grocery stores and gas stations. Other places are more rustic and old in the old part of the city. Our first stop will be the Key West Butterfly and Nature Conservatory. In the back part there are thousands of butterflies flying around. Let's look at this place a little bit. They also have a lot of exotic birds. Now as we leave there, we go by the southernmost point marker buoy. It's 90 miles to Cuba from here. It's so crowded we drive by and just take a few pictures. Driving can be rather exciting here. Golf carts, bikes, and scooters are everywhere, and they don't always obey the rules. We're going to now take a ride down Duval Street, which is the main street for the city. It has most of the tourist attractions, and the furthest in from where we are now is a bunch of bars and eating places. As we get to the end of Duval Street near the harbor, we're going to find a place to park and go eat at the Conch Shack. To some extent, it's a hole in the wall, but it's really good food from what we have heard. The main area for eating is filled up, so we go to the back to eat. We'll eat a few conchs just to see what they taste like, but we're mainly eating hamburgers. And there are chickens running loose everywhere in the whole city. Sometimes chickens and sometimes roosters. It's now time to hop on the Conch Train and take the ride around the city to get the full tour. This is the route we'll be taking.
Now we're at the northern end of the Caribbean Basin. That's what keeps our temperature so moderate throughout the year. We average 77 degrees. The hottest it's ever been here is 97. The lowest it's ever been is 41. We are the only city in the continental United States that can honestly say that we've never had frost and we've never had snow. Now our tour is going to be about 70 minutes long. This little square to my right over here is called Flint Square, and the memorial is dedicated to 167 Union soldiers that died of yellow fever during the Civil War. Fisher Maritime Museum, and Mel Fisher was a treasure hunter, and he looked for two specific wrecks, the Atocha and the Santa Margarita. Padlock on it, those are the presidential gates. They open only for visiting presidents. The first was tapped in 1912, the last was Clinton. Also back there is a Harry S. Truman little White House museum. Now President Truman loved Key West. He came here on 11 working vacations, totaling 175 days that he ran the country from here. That tree is there, 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 and there. That's all one tree. You'll notice these hanging roots right here. When they come down and touch the ground, they will form another trunk to that tree. That is the second largest banyan tree in the continental United States. Now this sign on the right here begin US 1 North, mile marker 0. If you went 2,209 miles straight up US 1, you would end up in Fort Kent, Maine. It is a bar with no windows. They got tired of replacing the windows on there, so they just put up some wrought iron. Now this area to my right over here is Bahama Village. Now, in the mid-1800s, a lot of Bahamians migrated to Key West. They came here to work in our wrecking industry, fishing industry, and plumbing industry. They brought their culture, their music, and their food. They taught us to eat, Tom. Now, to my right, this is our lighthouse. Now, it wasn't always located here. Initially, it was located at the very end of this street where the buoy is down there. But in 1846, a hurricane hit the shore, knocked it down, and swept it out to sea. It was rebuilt at this location in 1847, and it stood there ever since. If you climb those 88 spiral staircase steps, you have one beautiful view of our island. Notice the front doors. I said doors. There are two front doors on the keeper's quarters. And that's because it took two families to keep it running 24/7. It was a functioning lighthouse until 1969 when the Coast Guard decommissioned it. Now the area that we're coming into now is called Gatto Village. It was named for Eduardo Gatto, who was the biggest of all the Cuban cigar makers here. At the height of his business, he had over 500 employees. Now a good cigar roller could roll 150 cigars a day. At the peak output in Key West, there were 166 factories outputting over 100 million cigars a year. We were the cigar capital of the world. Now, Eduardo knew he needed to take care of his workers. He didn't want them to go to work for somebody else, so he built them houses. All these houses that you see here, he built for his cigar workers. He also built shops, stores, churches. He basically built a functioning city within a city. They didn't have to go anywhere for anything. He even had a horse-drawn trolley that would pick them up in the morning, take them to work, and bring them home at the end of the day. Now we're at the southernmost point of the continental United States. You are 90 miles from Cuba, 150 from Miami. You're closer to Havana than you are to Walmart. Now these are the southernmost tourists at the southernmost point, the southernmost city, taking their southernmost selfies. Now the southernmost house was built in 1890 by Judge Brining Harris and his wife Florida Curry. You're going to hear the name Curry a lot. Now, the judge in Florida loved to entertain. In fact, their entire second floor was a ballroom. But they didn't like house guests. They only built one bedroom in there. That's why they built those 3 cottages down there for their guests. Thomas Edison put electricity into the southernmost house. This yellow building right here is the Key West Butterfly and Nature Conservatory. And if you look at the back of the building, that giant atrium right there, at any given time, there's over 1,000 free-flying butterflies from around the world. Now, if you look to the very back of the property on my right over here, you're going to see a grotto. Now, that grotto was built in 1922 by Sister Juliana Gabriela, and she built it because in 1919 we had 3 hurricanes that came ashore and caused significant loss of life. And she built that and said, hey, look, if you pray to that, you'll never lose another soul to a hurricane again. Now, that was 98 years ago, and I don't know how many hurricanes, but since then, we've not lost one soul to a hurricane. Now, Henry Flagler was a very important man to the state of Florida and to Key West. He built his East Coast Railroad from St. Augustine to Miami, and in 1905 he proclaimed that he was going to continue it to Key West. Now everybody thought that he had totally lost it. They called it Flagler's Folly, and nobody would invest in it. But he didn't care. He had all his own money. He was John D. Rockefeller's business partner in Standard Oil. So he took $50 million of his own money to prove him wrong. And he did. On January 23rd, 1912, he rolled into Key West in the first train car, along with President Taft. Now, this body of water that you see in front of us, that is the Straits of Florida. It connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. And you notice there's no waves. And that's because 7 miles offshore, We have the third largest barrier reef in the world behind Australia and New Zealand, and it prevents wave action. It also stops sand from traveling freely. All of the sand that you see on any beach in Key West has been imported from somewhere. We have no natural sand of our own. One thing that reef did do for us, though, by the 1860s, it made us the wealthiest city per capita in the United States. And much of that was due to wrecking. And once or twice a week, the ship would hit that reef out there, and the call would go out, wreck ashore, wreck ashore. And every able-bodied man would run to his boat and race out there. The man who touched it first became the wreck master, and he decided how it was to be salvaged. He also got the lion's share of the profits when those ships' cargoes were auctioned off at a wrecker's port, usually every Saturday morning at the customs house. Now remember I told you at one point in time we were the wealthiest city per capita. Well, that was not true during this president. We were one of the poorest. Our population went down to about 10,000, and of that 8,000 were on assistance of some type. The city was so broke that it couldn't pay its employees, so it returned its charter to the state. In 1934, the federal government sent a gentleman by the name of Julius Stone here to see what could be done with Key West. And he said, well, you have great weather year-round, we do. He said, you have beautiful waters around your island, we do. He said, you have a railroad to bring people down from the mainland, we did. We're going to turn you into a tourist destination. So they set about doing a great, beautiful island fixer-upper beautification project. They planted a bunch of trees, built a couple of hotels, built our aquarium, all in an effort to get tourism jump-started in Key West. And they were going to have a major coming-out party in December 1935. But Mother Nature had something to say about that, for on Labor Day 1935, she unleashed the worst hurricane to ever hit the Keys. It hit about 70 miles north of us with winds over 200 miles an hour. It killed over 600 people and wiped out 35 miles of Flagler's Railroad. We were isolated again. 1938, the state said, hey, we're going to use those unused railroad trestles to build a road. And they did, and we were reconnected. This white church, there's been a church located in that since 1832, the oldest diocese in Florida. That's the fourth building to stand there. Two were blown down by hurricanes, one destroyed in the fire of 1886. Look at these stained glass windows. They were made by Tiffany's, and they are insured with Lloyd's of London for over $1 million. Now this big yellow building to the right, you're going to see that statue of Henry Flagler right there. Now that's where his railroad ended. That statue was donated to the city of Key West by some of his heirs. Now as I mentioned, this is our historic seaport area. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, it was a very busy seaport. They had over 100 fishing and shrimping boats here. And the fishermen and the shrimpers didn't really care for each other very much. Man, this was a pretty rough. Right over here is the waterfront brewery. They do about 5 different types of beer there. But I want you to pay attention to the mural right there. The mural was painted by a world-famous marine artist. His name is Wyland. And he's painted over 100 of his whaling walls all over the world. That's number 52. Now, this big white building on the corner right there is the birthplace of Pan Am Airways. If you were on the first international flight between Key West and Havana in 1927, you would have gotten your ticket there.
The original Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville store is here. Now we're going to go look at one of the oldest aquariums in the nation, the Key West Aquarium. It's a fairly small aquarium, only 2 rooms. This room here, and then also the room beside it that has a display there. And after leaving the aquarium, we see the pirate ship in the harbor and then go to our hotel to check in. It'll be the Best Western Hibiscus Key West. And it's located here. In fact, the arrow is pointing to our room on the first floor where we're right around the swimming pool. After unloading our baggage, we head to the mansion, where we're going to eat at the Seaside Cafe next to it, right on the shore. We're able to get a table right by the shore because it's rather sunny and hot there, and other people didn't want to sit there. So we're happy to sit by the shore and see the waves washing in. And Deborah sip on her margarita after all. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Deborah will have one of their famous pizzas and I'll have the lobster rolls. And then it's time to head back to our hotel. This is what Key West looks like at night, and we bring day 24 to an end.